right, everybody. It's another live football episode of Tap House and Touchdowns. It's your guy, Bully Rye, and as always, joining me for the football shows, Banker Bill. Bill, what's going on, man? How's everything?
It's great, man. Life is fantastic. It is football season is upon us, and fantasy football season is upon us, guys. Guys are having drafts already. We're eventually gonna have to do a fantasy football thing. We're at to go over it.
Yeah, listen, it's coming. It's coming, right? A lot of stuff happening. Like you said, training camp is well underway at this point. A lot of stuff going on, if you will. Yeah, I think we ought to probably start doing some fantasy breakdowns next week. First of all, if anybody's watching the show live on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, make sure you leave a comment below and we'll read it on the air. If you're watching on one of the platforms and want to find another platform to go to, you can always go to facebook.com/tapouts and touchdowns. You can search for Tap Outs and Touchdowns on the YouTube channel and Twitter @tapouts and TDs. Quick shout out to Volley Polly and Will Smith, both in here watching along. Got a YouTuber watching tonight, so that's fun. Yeah, let's get right into it, Bill. Before we get into NFL talk, for the first time since you've been on the show, we're going to talk a little bit of college football. It's football nonetheless, and I think it's relevant because there are some big time rumors coming out of college football in the form of more conference realignment. The Big Ten has been rumored to be interested in signing Clemson, Florida State, Oregon, and Washington to join USC and UCLA, who are going to be joining as members next year. Now, with Texas and Oklahoma leaving the Big 12, Big 12 has added 4 teams. I couldn't tell you who they are at the top of my head. Give me your initial thoughts on the news that came out about this. Like, what's going through your head about the idea that the Big Ten can not only just completely decimate the Pac-12 now, but now affect the future of the ACC?
I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I think that's where I live in the college football realignment world. I know a lot of people would like to see certain rivalries continue, and I'm a little bit scared that we're going to lose a lot of that and have to rebuild from the ground up. Really, if we do that, even with the SEC bringing on extra teams, they got rid of protected rivalries. Obviously, you and I, we go head to head every season. That's not going to be happening anymore.
Yeah, we aren't going next year. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's done. I'm frustrated. I don't like it. I think that's where I live. I don't like it. I mean, the Big Ten bringing in, Big Ten was a regional conference, it seemed like, for a long time, right? And they're bringing in, the West Coast teams. I don't love that. There's a lot of travel that goes with the players having to go out to the West Coast. I just thought there's a lot of stuff I really don't like about it. The only thing I think it benefits is the conference. I guess the schools themselves, they make more money because of the TV deals, but I don't care about that. We're going to lose a lot of tradition, and I don't like that.
Real quick, Volley Polly chimes in. First comment of the night. At this point, what's the point of conferences? I kind of understand what you're saying. There was a story that I was unaware of until I listened to the Herd earlier this week, where
that's your first problem right there.
Yeah, listen,
I like Colin.
I'd rather listen to Colin Cowherd than another radio.
I don't like his new guy, by the way. What's his name? Jason McIntyre.
I couldn't tell you. I only listened to him because I refused to listen to another upstate radio host. Nevertheless, there's a story about when Oklahoma and Texas decided to leave the Big 12. The Big 12 reached out to the Pac-12 to try to create some sort of partnership, some sort of deal where they could, whether it was a conference merger or like some sort of partnership when it comes to scheduling. And the Pac-12 said, no, I'm okay. And now the Pac-12 has lost USC and UCLA, and they're on the verge of losing Oregon and Washington. And so they reportedly reached out to the Big 12 and said, hey, remember that deal that you had on the table? How about it? And the Big 12 was simply like, no, I'm good. Have a good day. And just hung on the phone on them. Like, I'm with you though. Yeah. So with teams like, first of all, USC and UCLA both leave Cal in the dust. That sort of, it doesn't really upset me because it doesn't affect me. But if I'm a Cal fan, like, how am I going to play both USC and UCLA every year? it would be like Florida not playing Georgia and Tennessee
Right.
every year.
Right. Or Florida State. I mean, it's
Or
crazy.
Florida State, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now you take Oregon and Washington. You wonder how it's going to affect, because what does that make? What that puts the Big Ten? They were already at 12 teams. That puts them at 18 teams if they take Clemson and Florida State away. So you have
That's
to
ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Sorry. That's
no,
ridiculous.
you have to wonder how the schedule works out, because if they're going to have to play a lot of conference games, we could lose Washington State, Oregon State. You're still going to get USC, UCLA. But now, to your point, like, what happens if there's so many conference games that they have to play in the Big Ten that we lose Florida State, that we lose South Carolina, Clemson? At some point, there's got to be a line in the sand drawn. Like, you eventually, we're just going to get to where it was a few years ago, where it's the Power Five and everybody else. Except for the Power Five, it's going to be the Power Three. You're going to have the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the SEC. Because if you pull 6 teams out of the Pac-12, you've pulled half the conference. That conference doesn't survive. You'd
have to find other teams. I mean, there's still teams out there on the West Coast that don't really have a big conference. You got Boise State's always a pretty
So that was my next point. So the Mountain West, there's like a $34 million buyout if those teams want to leave to go to the Pac-12. On the other side of the country, if you look at the ACC, there already been rumors last year about Clemson and Florida State wanting to leave and go to the SEC. And then earlier this year, there was a manufactured rumor that teams like North Carolina, Florida State, Clemson, was it Virginia, and one other school out of the ACC all wanted to jump ship and join the SEC. It's sort of a power move to try to make the ACC do something in order to make the teams happy and to keep people coming in. But like, Notre Dame is going to have to eventually join a conference in football. There's too much money in the NBC deal right now, but eventually that contract's going to come up. And NBC isn't going to want to pay a conference and Notre Dame's rights. And so
they're in an awkward spot too, because they're, other than their football team, all of their other sports play in conferences.
Yeah, no, and they play in the ACC.
And basketball's in the ACC, and that doesn't look like it's going to be one of the top football conferences. So
real quick, I believe your sister's in here.
Hey, what's up, Tara?
So yeah, listen. At some point, like I said, there's got to be a line drawn. There's going to have to be a stop to it. You're eventually just going to have these power conferences where it's going to leave everybody else on the wayside, like they were years ago in the BCS. More of my concern isn't about regionality, and this is all has to do with football, right? I think the Big Ten is arguably going to have the best basketball conference in the country at this point now. But like, what happens when Southern Cal has to play a night game in December or in November in snowy Penn State?
That's the team I was thinking of, was Penn State. So I believe you said that. Yeah, I don't like any of it.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating to me.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do? We can sit here and talk about it. What are you going to do? They're going to do whatever makes them the most amount of money. That's why they're doing it anyway.
Real quick, another shout out from Volley Polly. This is the last year of the SEC on CBS. I'm going to miss the theme watching Carolina games. And you know what I'm not going to miss?
Does he know where they're going? Does he know what TV network is picking up the SEC?
The ESPN. ESPN has exclusive rights. Okay. Yeah. I can say that while I'll miss the CBS themed when we watch Carolina play Georgia on a Saturday afternoon, or Alabama for that matter, I won't miss the 30-minute long commercial breaks, because CBS likes to draw those games out, and I won't miss Gary Danielson. I think Gary Danielson is the worst color guy in all of sports. He picks the team that he thinks is going to win. He studies them, and that's the only thing he covers throughout the game.
And Andy Hunter in the chat checking us out.
Hey, I guess Andy's on vacation again.
That's right.
Good stuff. What's up, Andy? So yeah, listen, there's been no deals made, nothing official, but the way that college football is headed is that eventually we're not going to get the regional conference anymore. The Big Ten is a prime example. The Big Ten has completely destroyed the idea of a regional conference, because you can even argue that the SEC, when they added Oklahoma and Texas, it's still like, it's far away from Florida. Like, if you think about Norman, Oklahoma,
it's still kind of down there in the south, kind of to the east.
Like
more Midwest, but still kind of the East.
They screwed up when they added Missouri and Texas A&M, right?
Yeah, I think the big one that we all need to look at and make sure that we're not falling into that trap is Nebraska. Nebraska has not benefited from moving over to the Big Ten. It's gotten worse. It's gotten worse.
Well,
like they were not good, and they did it because money. We get money, and we'll get the recruits because they get to play the Big Ten schools. No, you now stink, and nobody wants to go there.
So my last question before we get into the NFL: what happens if these teams leave? I mean, we've already talked about the Pac-12 is going to have to these conferences. We've already
they have to reload. I mean, if they're going to keep themselves alive, they have to reload with teams. They have to figure that out.
Do you see a hypothetical merger between a conference like the Pac-12 and the Mountain West, or some sort of merger between, let's say, if the Big Ten has already completely demolished the idea of a regional conference, right? Yep. What if there's a merger between the Pac-12 and the ACC to make it the coastal conference, like the coastal conference? And so, half the ACC plays half of the Pac-6, whatever you want to call it now. Do you think that's a potential, I guess
I don't know. I mean, they're going to have to import a lot of teams into a lot of conferences, right? I mean, there are teams out there. We're talking about certain teams. San Diego State's got a decent football. I mean, there's teams out there that they could find, but it's a huge move for all these schools, right? I mean,
yeah,
it's just going to be tough. They're going to have to figure out how to stay alive, and I'm glad I'm not on those boards. That's kind of what I'm excited about.
Well, I'm glad
Actually,
that
that's not true. I would love to be on those boards. If anybody wants to hire me to be on your board, I'll come up with dumb ideas because everybody else is having them. So I mean, it's terrible. Money's driving the whole thing. It's all greed, and it's terrible.
I had so many jokes when you were talking about pay me to be on somebody's board. Listen, I'm just glad to be talking about college football again. I mean, we're about a month away from college football kickoff
for a season. So, we get a season before all this craziness, this silly stuff happens.
Yeah, it's talking season. We've already had the media days for most of the conferences.
I'm not looking forward to this season.
I know you aren't, but I am, as you can tell by the by the gear tonight. Let's move on to the NFL because we've got some really fun stuff to talk about. NFL news and notes. Let's start off in Seattle since Andy is joining us. Some big issues in Seattle. Running backs Kenneth Walker III. And is it Zach Charbonnet?
Yes.
Both dealing with injuries. Kenneth Walker's got a groin injury. Charbonnet dealing with a shoulder injury. Neither one of them are practicing right now. I know it's early in camp, but neither one of them are practicing. Bill, is there some reason to be concerned here in Seattle?
Oh, I watched a little bit of Pete Carroll this week. That's my other, adopted team. I lived out there for a long time, had season tickets to the Seahawks for years. I watched a little bit of Pete Carroll this week, and he doesn't seem to be all that concerned. I think they're both guys, they're just being a little bit precautionary, and they expect him to be ready for the season. So they're just kind of holding him out right now, but you don't like to see that, right? You don't like to see your two top running backs, or what you would expect to be your two top running backs, dealing with injuries right into camp, because, I mean, injuries are the thing that's going to sideline your season if you're a running back. The nagging groin, I hate that stuff. And that's what and then what scares me about that is he's probably going to be a pretty high pick in fantasy football. What do you do with him now?
Well, I'm glad you brought it up because you wanted to talk about fantasy football. Here's our opportunity. With the drafting of Zach Charbonnet, it automatically hurt the draft stock of Kenneth Walker because they've got this guy who can play well. He stayed healthy a lot. I was talking to everybody all year or all preseason last year. Kenneth Walker will be starting by week 6. And sure enough, Rashad Penny gets hurt. Walker comes in, and he's the guy that I told everybody he would be. Andrew chimes back in. Just believe.
Can't say that anymore. Believe. Yeah, no, that was the thing. So the Seahawks had believe, but they'd swap one of the E's with a 3. Because it was Russell Wilson. That's why I said you can't use that anymore. He's not there anymore. Nobody believes in Denver. It's not happening anymore.
Well, we'll get to talk about some Denver. I actually don't have it on my call sheet, but we're going to talk about Denver here in a second too, because there are a lot of injuries going around. We already talked about Seahawks injuries. Let's go over to Cincinnati, where Joe Burrow has a calf injury that a lot of people are saying was mismanaged by the Bengals. He had a strap on his calf. He came up lame in practice, and now he has been shut down. They're hopeful that he is going to play in the regular season opener. But big news out of Cincinnati here, Bill.
I mean, yeah, of course. You starting quarterback, the All Pro, the one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the AFC right now gets injured. Absolutely, that's a huge thing. Honestly, I don't even know who Cincinnati's backup. Actually, no, I don't. I know who Arizona. I was reading some stuff about Arizona. Don't know why I did that, but I read some stuff on Arizona this week. Who is Cincinnati's backup? Does anybody even know? I don't.
You know who it used to be.
I don't know. I don't know that roster, I guess, well enough. Or I know the starters, but I don't know who their backup is.
At one point, it was AJ McCarron.
You're a funny guy.
I mean, it was.
Ruined that one. Yeah, it was. And they really wish they had him right now, I guarantee, because he had a pretty good season for the St. Louis Battlehawks. But I'm looking. It is Trevor Siemian.
That's a huge drop off.
Well, I mean, anybody's a drop off from Joe Burrow, unless you have like a Pro Bowl backup. But it's tough, man. That's going to be tough. I hope he's ready for the season. No, I don't. I hope that he misses a lot of time.
I'm
for my team.
Yeah. Listen, I'm more concerned about the fact that if the Bengals knew that he had a nagging injury that could have been worsened by not letting it rest, and now we're
put him
seeing
out of the field. Yeah,
kind of like playing Madden. Like, hey, he's got a calf strain. Do you want to play the substitute or play the starter, or play him? The injury risk is medium. Like, if the injury risk was anything other than small, you sit Joe Burrow,
right?
Because now you've put his health at risk, you put his future at risk. Because if he can't practice, I mean, listen, yeah, you would think that even if he doesn't practice until the week before the regular season starts, he's still not going to be in football shape.
It's quarterback.
It's not on the list here that I've got for us. But did you hear the news about of course, Tim Patrick in Denver? Wide receiver Tim Patrick tore a muscle preseason last year, didn't play.
Okay.
Has torn his Achilles, his second straight year for the Denver Bronco wide receiver, where he has suffered a major injury prior to the season. Do you think Tim Patrick's kind of over being hurt? Like, do you think it's time for him to, like, you know what, can't get healthy, it's time to call it quits? Because he hasn't been in the league that long.
Depends on how much he loves football.
That's a fair point. I'm looking through the Twitter feed right now. A lot of other injuries going on again. Just it's been a crazy offseason so far. Let's move over here to some non-injured players, and that being Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott. Dalvin Cook has met with the New York Jets. Ezekiel Elliott went and met with the Patriots. So, Bill, where do you see each of these guys winding up?
Honestly, Dalvin Cook, I have no idea. You and I had a little bit of a conversation about that. I think it's more about what does Dalvin Cook value? Does he want money, or does he want to win? Now, he's used to winning. He's won a lot he won a lot in Minnesota. Didn't make it to any big games, right? But he's been pretty fantastic for about 4 years. So what does he want? What does he want? Is the big paycheck, the extra $3 million worth it to him to go play for a team, maybe a little bit of a lesser team, versus where does he want to go? Where he could go. I do know that a lot of people keep linking him to the Miami Dolphins because Dalvin Cook is from Florida.
They already have. They're stocked full of running backs.
It's constant. I obviously, we're looking at it, right? They absolutely, every single board, every single group, Facebook group on Facebook is talking about Dalvin Cook going to Miami. And supposedly they made an offer. Then Dalvin Cook said, well, no, they didn't. They didn't make me an offer. And then he went to the Jets and he spent time watching practice on Sunday, but didn't sign.
Mm-hmm.
So from what I'm reading is that people think that he was using the Jets as leverage.
Listen,
nobody really wants to play for the Jets. Obviously,
I don't see him in Miami. I don't. I know he played at Florida State. I know he's from Florida.
Miami's loading up. They're loading up for a title run. Do
they really need 4 running backs? Like 4 starting caliber running backs?
We need extra corners. I mean, we had 2 Pro Bowl starters and drafted one in our top draft pick.
Yeah.
One you're very familiar with.
Well, that's why you don't need another running back, especially when you're going to have to pay like that.
You never know. You never know. You've got Jeff Wilson. You've got Raheem Mostert. They have what's his name? Andy would know The guy from
Raheem Mostert. You're talking about
Washington. They have Salvin Ahmed and
Savon
Myles
Ahmed.
Gaskin.
Yeah.
Myles
Yep,
Gaskin.
yep, yep.
Those two guys are both from Washington. They have 4 running backs right now. They usually carry 3 on the roster, but Dalvin Cook's better than all those guys.
I'm not going to disagree with you.
Load it up. Load it up. We're making a run. We're going to make a run. You have to beat the halves, man. You got to beat Kansas City. You got to beat Cincinnati. You got to beat Buffalo.
Well, later in the show,
people on the field to do that.
Later in the show, we're going to see how exactly far we have the Dolphins going in the playoffs. A couple of other injuries to note. Cooper Kupp has a pulled hamstring. Pulled up, I believe, Tuesday night's practice with a bad hamstring. Not a good sign coming off an injury on himself, and a hamstring will linger the entire season. So big news coming out of Los Angeles. You also got a wide receiver trying to return from a suspension in Calvin Ridley, who left practice this week with a toe injury. So pretty interesting to see two guys that people were eyeing in fantasy football drafts that are both going down.
Honestly, you just got to be careful, right? I mean, it's that time of year. We're just going to see injuries every single day.
So we mentioned Dalvin Cook. What about Zeke? I mean,
who cares?
On the Cat Cave, I talked to my co-host Michael Davis because he's a Dallas Cowboy fan.
He's done. He's done. He's not going to bring anything to a team that's going to. He is Trent Richardson now. He's not. He's fat. He's slow. He's not really breaking tackles anymore. He's just a big dude. He's done.
Do you think he signs with anybody?
What is he good for? He's not a mentor. He was a kook when he was a player. So, what is he good for? Do you really need a thumper that is slow? I don't know.
I'm glad you used the word kook, because we talk about Dalvin Cook and potential landing spots. One potential landing spot that nobody's talking about are the Indianapolis Colts. Jim Irsay making a legitimate mistake by calling out people trying to negotiate for running backs in bad faith, upsets his own franchise running back in the last year of his rookie contract, who has requested a contract extension, was told that he wouldn't get one, and now has requested a trade.
And might be the best running back in the league.
Yes.
Yeah.
So 2 things. One, Dalvin Cook. If I'm Jim Irsay, I'm looking at Dalvin Cook, because if you're not gonna keep Jonathan Taylor, you need a running back, and regardless who they have, they're not Jonathan Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor was going to get his butt worn out up there in Indianapolis this season with a terrible quarterback, and he knows it. I bet you he does not want to be in that situation. They're going to lose. They're going to lose a lot. And I don't think he wants to be in that situation.
Well, here's the other problem. There's now sources that are out there saying that Jonathan Taylor is dealing with a nagging back injury. Jonathan Taylor has publicly disputed that. Like, get your sources straight. I have never once complained about my back. It is not sore. I am not hurt. And this was said to be a ploy in order for the Colts to put him on the PUP list, the non-football PUP list, physically unable to perform, so that they can avoid paying his last year's salary. Who the hell is Jim Irsay?
Oh, he's a jerk of an owner. He's been a jerk of an owner for a long time.
Listen. He's been busted with
he's a terrible owner. Since Peyton Manning wasn't the quarterback there, what have they done? They had Andrew Luck, a generational talent. They wasted him and got him beat to crap, and he retired.
I hope my boss listens to this. Mike, shout out if you're listening, because he and I had this conversation at lunch today. I asked. There's been a comparison of Jim Irsay. I forgot. It might have been Colin Cowherd that said it again, that Jim Irsay is Jerry Jones without the prestige.
Yes,
I compare Jim Irsay to the modern day Al Davis.
No, they're all like that.
He thinks he knows what he's doing, but he keeps stepping on his own 2 feet, or stepping on his own feet. The other problem is that he had so much fall into his lap as an owner. He drafted Peyton Manning, and all he put together as an owner when Peyton Manning was there was 1 Super Bowl. Drafted the heir apparent, got him beat up, and he's out the league way too soon. And Andrew Luck. I mean, if I'm a Colts fan, I want Jim Irsay to sell the team. Would you agree, or am I being too excessive about it?
I mean, he's a bad owner. The best owners in football are the owners you don't know. Once you hear about an owner, you've got problems.
That's a good point.
So that's in football. Now, there's other sports that's not like that because the owners can spend a lot more money and things like that. In football, you spend to the salary cap. You're always trying to stay under the cap. That's how you win in football. When these owners get involved and they start telling the guys that actually know football how to run their teams, it's never good. It's never good.
Yeah. So we're talking about owners real quick. How about one more topic before we take our first ad break? Have you seen the petition for the Washington Commanders to change their name back?
Please don't.
It's happening. There's a petition going on, but I just want to say once again here on the show that I was ahead of the curve when I said ownership needs to change.
You did not know. Well, I guess you did. That was your thing. Yeah. But you started saying that before we had the copyright issue and all that good stuff. You got lucky. You got lucky. Like the snowball kept building after you brought it up. So yeah. But it keeps getting more and more. You know what's terrible is I think I read too much about football because every time you bring something up, I'm like, yeah, I read something about that this week. I did read something about the Redskins changing their name this week, and every single person that commented on that story said, "Bring back the Redskins." Every single person.
Yeah,
and the one guy said something about bring back the Redskins, and I'm a member of Navajo Nation. Please bring it back.
No kidding.
Well, I mean, you say Andy Hunter there is a Native American, pure blood Native American, and we've had multiple conversations about does Redskin bother, and he's no, he likes the Redskins Day, that kind of thing. So. We always laugh about how they get rid of these names, and that for him as a pureblood never really bothered him.
Well, nevertheless, it'll be interesting to see. A lot more is going to happen between now and the start of the football season.
Yep, see, there he is. We got the comment. He's still watching. He agrees. Bring it back.
Yep. And Andy coming back saying he thinks he's bringing back the name.
We've had the conversations. Yeah, Andy, is this a big deal? No.
Well, that's an interesting take. Maybe we'll have Andy on the show to talk more about it from someone who has more of a ground to stand on about it than we do.
Yeah.
Bill, we're going to take our first ad break, and then we're going to get into our playoff predictions. And if Volley Polly is still watching, we're going to touch on something that he sent in for us to touch on. But before we do that, let's talk about who this show is brought to you by this week, and that is Carolina Business Equipment. With offices in Charleston, Greenville, Columbia, and Florence, Carolina Business Equipment can supply your copiers, computers, and printers anywhere in the state of South Carolina. Call my best friend, Aaron Thompson, at 843-452-8761 for a quote today, and make sure you tell him that Ryan from Tap House and Touchdown sent you. Carolina Business Equipment, you worry about your business. Let us handle your technology. Bill, we are way too ahead of ourselves when it comes to predicting the NFL, because again, we've seen guys go down already. We've seen guys get hurt, potentially season long, at least temporarily. But Volley Polly, a former guest of the show, I still owe him a T-shirt, if I'm going to be honest here, from winning a contest on the show last year that I just haven't gotten around to making T-shirts yet. But he sent us a request. He and one of his buddies were having a conversation. And I think we can sort of answer these questions based on how we had our playoff breakdown the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But they had an argument that after missing the playoffs, either Volley Polly took the Lions, I think his friend, and I'm going to try to pull it up while you talk about this. One of them said the Lions make it. The other one said the Packers make it. Who makes the playoffs of these two teams after missing last season?
Oh, you did send me that. Oh, that is joy. Lions and the Packers?
Yeah, Lions and the
Lions.
Packers.
The Lions make the playoffs. The Packers will be lucky to be 500.
His friend Derek is
out of his mind.
Talking about.
He's out of his mind. Derek was out of his mind until the very last question. I could not believe this man has seen an NFL game.
Yeah, shout out to Michael Davis, because Volley Polly posed the question after the title of Michael Davis's podcast. Would you and Bill care to discuss who is more out of pocket? That is the actual name of one of Michael Davis's podcasts.
Okay.
So he wanted to know between him and his buddy Josh. Derek and Josh, which one of them think this? Listen, we both talked about it 2 weeks ago when we talked to the NFC. The Packers are going to be a dumpster fire. They are in super rebuild mode. If I'm Aaron Jones, I'm getting out.
Yes.
If I can't even say is it AJ Dillon, just the backup running back.
Correct.
Anybody that is of some sort of skill player, I'm wanting out of Green Bay. Now, there's people in the national media think that both of us are off base, that the Packers are going to be fine with Jordan Love, even though we don't have any film to talk really about Jordan Love. We are both in the consensus that the Packers. First of all, I said the Packers were garbage last year. They were.
No,
and
I
I think
they weren't garbage. They actually had an okay season. Let's not go there. Let's not go there.
Season.
They went what 7-10.
That's a bad season for
8-9.
Aaron
Was 8-9? What they 8-9 maybe? Was it 8-9?
They had the same. They had the same record. They had the same record as the Lions, and the Lions beat them.
They're one game away from being above 500. That is not a terrible season.
That's for an Aaron Rodgers-led football team. That's a terrible season.
Well, he's leading the Jets this year, so
and the Jets are going to be bad. And I can't.
Hey, I'm good. I'm good with that. Let's make it happen.
Well, I think this will be a pretty obvious answer too, because they also asked who misses the playoffs after making the playoffs last year: Tampa Bay or Jacksonville.
Tampa. Tampa is going to be one of the worst 3 teams in the NFL this year.
So his buddy Josh thinks
Jacksonville
is more likely to miss the playoffs than Tampa
out of his mind. That is Josh was out of his mind. Sorry, it was Josh that was the whole time. I'm going, what is this guy doing?
Paulie, I don't know who your friend Josh is. Okay, and I'm looking.
He should watch football. I think he's been watching soccer and has no idea what he's looking at.
I'm looking directly in the camera because hopefully you send your friend Josh to the show. Josh, I want you to listen carefully. You need to get off the internet.
Yeah.
I think it's time that you maybe pick another sport. Baseball season's still going on. The Braves.
We have to look at the camera while we do that. Watch football before you comment on it.
Yeah, just watch. You know what? Watch the week 18 from last season. That's just go back. If you got the NFL Network, some NFL on demand, find week 18 last season. See how. Please do it. Please do it. No football before you talk about football. Okay, we're not experts. We don't get paid to do this. Really, I'm an expert. I've gone off on Michael Davis about his thought that the Falcons are the team to be worried about in the NFC South. Out of between the Falcons and the Saints, the Falcons are a dark horse, and I've berated him on our show. This is worse. The final question that's not going to be on the screen here. Who's more likely to have the number 1 overall pick next year? Volley Polly has the Commanders, Washington. Josh has Houston. Which of those 2 teams do you think has a better shot to get the number 1 overall pick?
I think probably. Wow, that is really tough. I think Houston's going to be terrible. No. So, let's do it. I'll tell you with my records. Hang on.
Yeah, I was going to say I've got the records pulled up. I have the Texans going 4-13. You have the Texans going 2-15.
Yeah, so the Texans.
Yeah, in comparison, the NFC East, I've got the Commanders at 4-13, as do you. So based on that, the Texans have a better shot at the number 1 overall pick.
Yes, I think probably the Texans.
Do they have a number 1 pick next year after trading away what they did to get the number 3 pick this year? That's a better question I'd like to have. The answer to, at least.
We can go there.
Because can you imagine if after the year that they got the number 2 and the number 3 pick, that they're slated to get the number 1 pick and they don't have it because they traded? Oh man. Yeah, that's wild stuff. Hopefully that scratched your itch there, Volley Polly. So you can take this podcast to your friend Josh and tell him how out of his mind he is. Let's call it that. I'm not going to steal the catchphrase and the title of Michael's podcast again. Bill, while you're looking it up, we said we were going to do it and we're doing it.
Ryan.
Yeah.
Ryan, the Houston Texans do not have a first round pick.
Can you imagine?
They traded it to Arizona. Yeah.
Imagine if they do get the number 1 pick and Arizona gets it now. Because Arizona, I'm assuming Arizona still has their first round pick. And if Arizona
has 2 first-round picks.
So if Arizona, where do we have Arizona? NFC West. I've got the Cardinals at 6-11. You've got them at 4-13. Imagine if Arizona wound up with 2 of the top 5 picks in the draft next year without having to make a trade. Just imagine. Anyway, let's move on here. We're going to be predicting our way too early NFC and AFC playoff predictions. To refresh the audience, the NFC playoffs play out for myself. I've got the 49ers, Eagles, Lions, Panthers, Vikings, Cowboys, and Saints in that order. Meanwhile, Bill has the Eagles, Vikings, Saints, Niners, Lions, Cowboys, and Giants. So we've both got the Niners, both got the Eagles, we both got the Lions. You've got the Saints winning the NFC South. You don't have so you've got the Saints and the Giants in the playoffs instead of the Panthers and the Vikings. So I kind of
feel good about that.
You feel good about that?
Oh yeah.
I hope
the Saints are beating the Panthers. Get out of here with this stuff.
I can't wait. I can't wait until like week 9.
It's a rookie quarterback.
It doesn't matter. They've got
Trevor Lawrence was a higher rated rookie quarterback.
Mm-hmm. I'm listening.
Right?
Please,
right?
I'm assuming so, yeah.
The Bryce Young, right? Or am I wrong?
I mean, I honestly don't know the numbers off the top of my head.
Trevor Lawrence was more of what they considered was going to be a generational talent at quarterback coming out of college. And you think that this guy's anointed and is going to take this team to the playoffs and be a division winner. What has Trevor Lawrence done in the NFL?
I've got the Panthers at 11-6.
Other than Justin Herbert, which was the best rookie season we've seen ever.
Mm-hmm.
What did he make it to the playoffs in his rookie season?
Are you talking about Lawrence or are you talking about Herbert?
Well, Trevor Lawrence has done nothing. He's been pretty bad, period.
Yeah, he made the playoffs last year.
Barely. And Justin Herbert has made it to the playoffs once in 3 seasons and had the best rookie season in the history of the NFL, been worse than that ever since.
I am so glad you brought up Justin Herbert.
You're saying that this guy is going to be better than any rookie quarterback in the history of the NFL. I don't believe that.
I first of all, I didn't say that. Okay,
that's what you're betting on this. You're taking them to the playoffs.
I'm betting on the
better
Panthers.
than any rookie quarterback in the history of the NFL.
You're
betting telling me that the San Diego Chargers had a worse roster.
The LA Chargers.
They said that. Well, whatever. At the time, I think they're San Diego, right? So,
when Herbert got drafted,
they're always going to be San Diego to me, right?
Yeah, they're San Diego.
Yeah. So the LA Chargers had a worse roster. They didn't. They had weapons all over the place. These guys do not.
Let me read you a stat. Real quick.
Yeah.
In the 3 years that Herbert has been in the league, the Chargers have scored 1,233 points. That's the most in NFL history in a 3-year span.
Okay.
In that same 3-year span, they have given up 1,256 yards or 1,256 points.
With a defensive-minded head coach, Anthony.
That is the most in NFL history in a 3-year span. So everybody's giving Herbert this big to do.
Oh, go look at the stats. The stats are there. We can have this debate one day where I could do this on Homer's Corner, where I compare Herbert against other good quarterbacks, and we can talk about how he's not as good as people think he is.
Tim chimes in that there's always going to be San Diego to him too. I'm with you. Nevertheless, listen. I think the Panthers roster is built to make the playoffs with a guy like Bryce. Listen, the last 4 years.
You think Hayden Hurst is going to have 1,000 yards? You lose all credibility in talking with the Panthers as soon as you say that out loud.
Listen, he's already caught a touchdown in camp, as did DJ Shark caught 2 earlier this week in camp. And everybody's laughed at me because I said DJ Shark is going to be a top receiver for the Panthers.
Tyreek Hill's already got 2,000 yards in camp. Does it count? No. It's ridiculous for you to saying things like that.
The fact of the matter is they're already building the rapport with Bryce Young. That's my point. They are going to have a good enough team to make the playoffs. So anyway, I don't want to say we're going off on a tangent because this is just one division.
We're spitballing.
And come week 10, when the Lions have listen to me, when the Panthers have a 3-game lead on the Saints, we can talk about it again then. Hey, our friend Michelle chiming in. Emmy says hi to best friend Bill. Finally home watching the show live.
She really loved my simulator when she was at my house.
That's awesome.
And play it, yeah.
Michelle,
thanks for people I've let use it.
I have been to your house countless times and I still haven't even seen it.
Nope.
She
Drove it. She drove it first time out. It's pretty cool.
Well,
Say hi to her for me, Michelle.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Michelle. Let's get into our NFC predictions. I actually wrote them down old school on pen and notebook paper. Bill, rather than we could go through it if you want to. I do have the Vikings, the Saints, and the Lions all getting knocked out in the first round, and that hurts me to say. Oh, Michelle chimed in. She loves you, not your toys, meaning your simulator. And then look at Andy trying to chime in, saying hi to Michelle over on the thread. Bill, how do you see your playoffs working out here in the NFC?
Like by round?
I mean, if you want to go by round, if you don't, we can go straight to it.
I think your championship is going to be. You know what? I would have to look at the bracket. The bracket's brutal, right? But I think your two best teams. I mean, I didn't do a bracket, so I'm not exactly sure who meets where. But I think your two top seeds. I would have to go with two top seeds. I don't know how many upsets we're going to have, but when it comes down to the top, the best teams in each conference, usually you're seeing the top seeds make like the 1-2 seed makes that final. And honestly, I would say Philly comes out of the NFC. I can't see. I feel like they reloaded. They lost some players, but they reloaded. So I still think that's your best team in the NFC.
Yeah, it's weird you mentioned that. I've got Philadelphia and San Francisco playing in the NFC Championship.
I could have guessed that after your prediction that San Francisco is going to win 15 games.
Well, listen,
Seattle's in their division, Ryan. Seattle's in their division.
It doesn't matter.
They're going to lose at least one to Seattle, maybe two.
Do I have them lose? I can go through. I think I've got them losing one of their games. No, I got them sweeping Seattle. So, listen, I think that we didn't get to see how good San Francisco could have been last year because they lost their start. They lost two quarterbacks in their playoff game against Philadelphia. Yeah. For that reason, I'm taking them to win the NFC.
Wow.
I've got the 49ers knocking off Philadelphia. I think we've got a fun rivalry going over the next few years. If you can keep, and why can't I say his name, Mr. Irrelevant? The quarterback. Purdy. If you can keep Brock Purdy healthy, you can keep the rest of those skill players on offense for San Francisco healthy. Because you might have mentioned it too, or maybe my boss did. That when you've got the weapons on that offense, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, now Christian McCaffrey, it's not hard for your quarterback to look good. I mean, it showed because now Trey Lance struggled, but Garoppolo came in, played well until he got hurt, and then Brock Purdy came in and was the best quarterback in football for 4 weeks. I think that the 49ers are built. Now, granted, their entire offensive roster, they do have a great defense.
Yeah.
And they reloaded after the season. They added some more pieces to that defense. But at the same time, you've got you got to keep those guys on offense healthy. We got a comment here. Tim saying the Niners don't even get in.
You skipped the comment at before that was calling us losers.
Yeah, Katie coming into the podcast.
My daughter here called us losers.
Yeah, we got the whole clan in here tonight.
That's
but
right.
Yeah, Tim coming in saying that the Niners don't even get in, that McCaffrey won't finish the season.
I like that call. I think 1 year he stayed healthy.
Yeah,
it was last year.
We'll get in. I think we talked about it when we talked about the AFC. I think Derrick Henry's done. We'll get into them in a minute, but it wouldn't be surprising if Christian McCaffrey didn't play a full season because he hasn't done that really up until last year for the last 4 seasons prior to that. So you've got the Eagles winning the NFC, and I've got the Niners winning the NFC. Let's move over to the AFC side of the ball to again remind the audience where we stand. I think we have the same teams. I've got the Bengals, Bills, Chiefs, and Jags. You've got the Chiefs, Bengals, Bills, Jags. We've got the same division winners. And, yeah, we've got the same playoff teams just in a different order. The Dolphins, Ravens, and Titans getting in as the wild card. Bill, how do you see your AFC playoffs playing out?
I mean, the AFC is brutal. It is loaded. I think we have two good teams in the NFC, and we mentioned both of them. They just happen to be the teams that met in the NFC title game last year. I think the AFC has like 4, maybe 5 teams that could go to the Super Bowl. And it's all going to depend on how the season works out, right? If anybody gets a home, like if the Dolphins screw up and somehow have a really good record and they are the home team throughout the playoffs, Who wants to go to Miami in December? It's still 85, 90 degrees down there in the sun. I mean, that will be rough, right?
Oh, I would rather go to 85-degree weather than the snow in New England.
I don't know about that. I mean, it is because the Dolphins do that really fun thing where they make the opposing team wear the home uniform, so they have to wear their darks in the Miami sunshine. I've seen teams throwing up on the field in Miami before. It is not good. The Steelers admitted like 5 or 6 years ago when what was his name? The running back for the Dolphins. He was the guy out of Boise State.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I just can't
The
remember
knee
his
injury,
name.
but he had like the 200-yard games in a row. The Steelers admitted.
Oh, the guy, yeah, Kalen Balazs.
No, that's your favorite player from the XFL that was terrible.
He had 2 straight 200 rushing yard games. That's who I thought you were talking about.
Not in the NFL.
Yeah,
he
did.
He did not.
No, I'm thinking of.
I can't think of his name.
Oh my god,
terrible. I know.
I can see his face.
They traded him to Philadelphia for a 4th-round pick. Can't remember.
Well, nevertheless, so
hey, point is, teams run out of gas down there.
Yeah,
they do because the heat. But with that being said, I think coming out of the AFC, I'm going to pick a team that's not the number 1 seed, and I think Cincinnati gets out of the AFC this year.
Oh man, listen to us. Yeah. Listen to us almost agreeing on everything. I've got the Ravens getting knocked out. So the way that my playoffs worked out, I had every first round divisional matchup or wild card round were divisional matchups. I had the Bengals and Ravens, the Bills and Dolphins, and the Jags and Titans. I had the Dolphins knocking off Buffalo, obviously the Jags going on, and then the Bengals knocking off the Ravens, which put the Jags and the Bengals in the second round and the Chiefs and the Dolphins. And as much as I hate to say it, because I think the Dolphins could, it'll be an Arrowhead because unless I had, because I had the Bills winning the division. So, that's where I've got the Dolphins getting knocked off, and we get another rematch between the Bengals and Chiefs.
You want to see a grown man cry? You want to see a grown man cry? Let the Dolphins make it that far into the playoffs and then hang out with me on the day that they lose. Let's see a grown man cry.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I could say the same thing. I've got the Lions getting knocked out in the first round. Like, how do you as a fan of your team?
We talked about last week. You can't have faith in that team yet.
I have faith in that team.
You have faith that Hayden Hurst is getting 1,000 yards. We don't have the. There's no.
We talk about good teams in the NFC, or only 2 good teams in the NFC. I think the Lions could be one of those good, especially an emerging team. If the AFC is 5 deep, when we talk Bengals, Chiefs, let me look back. Bengals, Chiefs.
I think they're 4. I think it's honestly when it comes down to it, I think there's probably 4. Hell, maybe 5.
You got Bengals, Chiefs,
Bills,
a lot
of good
Dolphins.
teams in the AFC.
Yeah. I mean, arguably the Ravens can be a decent team. That's still to be seen. But nevertheless, when it comes to the NFC, you're setting up right now.
Don't forget Jacksonville.
Somebody
sort of rise last year.
Yeah, somebody sort of changed my mind and said that the Titans collapsed and the Jaguars sort of backed into the playoffs last year.
They did. There was a little bit of that happening, but that was because the Titans had absolutely 0 quarterback play from Malik Willis or whoever else they were running out there. Didn't they have Josh Johnson play in one game? It was just something horrible. Was that Baltimore? Somebody played him last year. I think it was them.
Josh Johnson played for the Niners.
Johnson. It was the guy from Tennessee that got drafted by Pittsburgh.
Josh Dobbs.
Did he play? He played time for Tennessee last year, and he's like a 3rd string to 4th string quarterback.
Yeah,
that's why they collapsed. If they have their starters, and we talked about this, if they have their starters, if Tannehill's still the quarterback, and even at that, if Will Levis is the quarterback, I mean, he doesn't look bad in camp.
Well, I'm glad we're talking about Tennessee because I think we've seen the last of Derrick Henry playing in a full 17 game season or 18 game season. I
don't. I think he's going to have another good year.
Listen, when you see a running back get banged up, typically the next year, I don't think he's got another year.
That's why you think Hayden Hurst is going to have 1,000 yards throwing balls from a rookie quarterback.
So Michelle chimes in. She says she's got $100 on the Bills going to the Super Bowl.
Wow.
Or maybe winning the Super Bowl.
You know what?
So
I would actually take that bet with you against you straight up 100 even, because I have statistics to show you that Josh Allen is one of the worst clutch quarterbacks in the history of the NFL. And he's actually not that good, period. But he's terrible when it comes to the playoffs. He's terrible.
Who's
The
worse?
Dolphins almost beat them with a third-string quarterback last year on their field.
Who's a worse playoff quarterback, Justin Herbert or Josh Allen?
It's hard to tell with Justin Herbert because he barely gets there, but Josh Allen's played in big games and he fails.
Hey, Tim's chiming in again that he thinks that Derrick Henry falls off like Brandon Jacobs and Marion Barber. He thinks that I'm onto something there.
I mean, that's all good, except for neither one of those guys are going to be in the Hall of Fame, and Derrick Henry is.
Listen, I like Derrick Henry. I think he's awesome to watch. He's a throwback like a Steven Davis, a Marshall Faulk type guy, but I just don't. He got banged up last year. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you went out and signed DeAndre Hopkins, so you've got a receiving threat again in Tennessee. But the fact of the matter is that Derrick Henry has taken all the bruising on that team for the last 4 to 5 years. And he started breaking down last year, and it's going to continue.
How many games did he play last year?
I think he played all but maybe 4 games or something like that.
Yeah, I think he had a foot injury. Wasn't it a foot injury that he missed?
Yeah. Okay. So, but when he started having,
or was that the year before? Because I swear, so Eckler got hurt last year for a short time.
Eckler got hurt last year.
And my choice in, I can't. My mouse died, so I can't move anything around now on the computer. I hate wireless. That's terrible, right?
First world problems.
I know. Like, hey, somebody get me a battery. But yeah. But no, I want to know how many games Derrick Henry played last year because I had Eckler last year, and for a lot of the season, I was frustrated. I had a shot to draft Henry or Eckler, and I took Eckler. Eckler had a really good year.
Yeah,
it ended up being the right choice. Yeah, but I think Henry played a lot of the season because I think the first half of the season, Henry was absolutely killing it. Wasn't last season the season that he was hurt, but he was still the rushing yards leader for like 3 or 4 weeks after he was injured? Like it was, yeah.
I think we should pencil this for next week and just talk about it, just debate.
Especially more playoff.
Well, not just more playoff, but we're going to be talking fantasy football starting next week. So we'll chime in and sort of butt heads on why we think Derrick Henry
is not going to go.
I didn't call you butthead. Oh yeah. Yeah, if you're butthead, I'm Beavis, I guess.
Yeah.
We're going to take our last ad break, and then we're going to get into Homer's Corner to close the show. Got a couple topics to discuss. So let's get right into our last ad and our last sponsor, and that is One Stop Repairs. Established in 2008, One Stop Repairs in North Charleston, South Carolina, is your one-stop shop for all your electronic repair needs. Specializing in cell phones, tablets, computers, laptops, and game consoles, One Stop Repairs offers reputable and quality service with the quickest turnaround time and the most competitive prices in the Low Country. You can find them on Google with an exceptional 4.9 star rating or on Facebook by searching for One Stop Repairs. Call Zach for a quote today at 843-343-6310. That's the number 1, One Stop Repairs. And now we get to my favorite segment every week, Homer's Corner. I am so glad that I had this idea when we started talking football again this season. Bill, you got a couple things that you want to talk about here in Homer's Corner, and they're both with the Miami Dolphins. Let's start off with the injury to Jalen Ramsey, torn meniscus in camp. They were concerned that it was much worse because they carted him off. Give us your thoughts on this injury, because I've torn my meniscus and I wasn't out for very long, but they're saying that this is going to be a pretty long injury recovery.
Yeah, I want to know, as I search for a battery here in my room, I don't have.
Yeah.
But I want to know what Dolphins fans have to do. I mean, you're a Lions fan, so clearly all of the sacrifices of goats and stuff that Lions fans gave to the gods did not help the Lions. So what did Dolphins fans have to do to get rid of this curse that it feels like we are underneath as we draft the number 36 player in the NFL as voted on by players and coaches this past season? Actually, I think it's just players. They did announce that today. He's injured, but he's number 36 in the NFL top 100. Jalen Ramsey, as we trade for him, a 3rd-round pick, which seemed like a bargain, and now his knee is gone. The meniscus in his knee is torn, and they're saying that originally it was 6 to 8 weeks, which would have brought him back just after the beginning of the season. Now they're not saying till December.
There had to have been something more. A meniscus. Listen, if you're,
I don't care what Dr. Ryan says. I'm telling you what. No. What do I have to do to fix the curse that I feel like you know what's amazing to me? Here's what's amazing to me. Chris Greer had the forethought to draft a cornerback in the second round when they had, I know, and it's your boy Cam Smith. Is that his name, Cam Smith? Is that
That's it. Yeah.
They call him Rook, is what they're calling him on all the pages. They're just calling him Rook because they're saying Rook making plays because they've been showing video of him.
That's all he does.
Yeah.
All he does is break up passes, dude.
Yep, that's what they were showing on the videos. But
that's all he does.
He had he drafted a cornerback when he was sitting with 2 All-Pro / Pro Bowlers as his starting corners, and sure enough, one of them goes down. So thank goodness we have a little bit of depth, not only with him and Darth Cater, but yeah.
Listen,
well, it's just a bummer, man. It was like, oh, they're all the hype. Here's the season. Look at all the players we have. We have Jalen Ramsey. He's the number 3 corner in the game, and now he's injured. Just like, man.
Tim thinks it has something to do with Ray Finkel.
What it feels like. It really does. I mean, I'm waiting for Tua to get another concussion because you remember when Tua played last season. Exactly. And you make that face because
I know
when he played last season, they had the best. They had the second best offense in the NFL, and then he gets injured and they can't score. They didn't win a game. He didn't play it or didn't start. So,
well, listen. Speedy recovery to Jalen Ramsey. And I know you don't want to talk to Dr. Ryan. I tore my meniscus and I was wrestling like 3 weeks later. Like it wasn't anything to me.
I know, but at your level, I think it's probably different.
At a professional, I was at a high school level and I was back to wrestling 3 weeks after.
How much do you need? I don't know anything about wrestling. Tim does. I think Tim does, but
you'll use all your joints in wrestling. That's why I'm 36 years old and I'm riddled with arthritis from wrestling. That's what I'm blaming on anyway.
Well, and the second part of that is that the Dolphins signed Eli Apple.
Yep.
To take Tyreek Hill, well, not Tyreek Hill, but to take Jalen Ramsey's place. If anybody remembers last year, Eli Apple and Tyreek Hill had a Twitter beef. In fact, there was a really colorful, and I wish we could show it because it's hilarious. Because what Tyreek Hill dresses in is just absolutely, he looks like a clown. But he is saying Eli Apple, I see you, boy. I'm gonna come talk to you, boy. Like it was their matchup, and if you remember, the Bengals absolutely torched the Dolphins because Tua got his head bounced off the turf there in Cincinnati. But now they're on the same team, and Tyreek's first tweet about it was great. He said, "Practice on Monday is gonna be good," and then there's nothing. Eli Apple said, "Oh, it's all love. It's all love." But they had an open Twitter beef. In fact, there is a rumor that Eli Apple got released from the Cincinnati Bengals. They did not sign him because of his Twitter presence.
Wow, that's
or X presence, whatever it's called now, because Twitter's gone.
It's funny you mentioned the fact that he was running his mouth on Twitter because I saw a reel earlier today when Jadeveon Clowney was in Houston and he was chirping at defensive back. I can't remember his name for Tennessee. He was number 36, and he kept saying, "Oh, 36, we gonna get you. 36, we gonna get you." And then it was Tom Savage at the time threw a ball into double coverage, and 36 was the one that picked him off. And it goes from Clowney just running his mouth at 36 to just standing there like, "Oh God, oh no, oh no!" Like it's just that the look of total shame in his face.
Yeah, like I blew
that
didn't age well, is what they did.
That's it. And you know who doesn't have shame on their face? That's the head coach of the University of South Carolina. Got a big signing this week. Their second 5-star signing in 2 years. Gets a commitment from the number 15 recruit in the country next season. 6'6", 245-pound defensive end, Dylan Stewart.
Where's he from?
Maryland. They kept. I don't know why they're calling it. He's from something collegiate, like it's a high school with collegiate in the title.
Probably prep school.
I don't understand why I keep seeing stuff from the DMV. I don't know what that stands for. I was hoping you might, but I put you on the spot, so maybe you don't. Nevertheless,
DMV.
Yeah, that we are just owning the DMV. I don't know if that means something has to do with the Maryland something or other, because there was something about the Maryland's football staff was irritated that we had guys that were in between us and Maryland, and they're coming to us instead.
Is that DC, Maryland, and Virginia, somewhere in that area there?
I could be it. Maybe that's it. Nevertheless,
DC's right there, right?
You boasted last week about the Gators having a top 3 class in the country.
Top 3 class, yeah.
With the signing of Dylan Stewart, or with commitment of Dylan Stewart. Now, I'm not one to dwell on signings until they've actually signed their LOI, right? But if he stays true to his commitment, We right now believe have a top 15 to top 16 class coming in next year. So considering that we are still 3 years removed from a 2-win season, whatever the case was, big moves getting made in the real Carolina as we are approaching
How
fastly
do you
Florida
even
season.
only win 2 games as an SEC school? Like, what did you lose to like South Carolina State in a 2-win season?
I think it was the COVID year. We only had 10 games.
How do you?
So it
Oh,
was
was it
only
mainly
SEC
SEC
games.
teams? Gotcha.
It was only SEC games. I mean, in fairness, in Spurrier's last year, he resigned after we lost to LSU because he knew this team wasn't good enough to win more than 4 games. And embarrassingly enough, if Aaron Thompson wasn't at a concert tonight, he'd be in here reminding me that the Citadel beat South Carolina in what would have been Spurrier's last year had he not resigned midseason.
That's
And
amazing.
Spurrier's the kind of guy that doesn't want to have that record on his resume because he's got an ego. And he left the cupboard bare for Will Muschamp.
It's a head ball coach right there, man. You can't say anything. You can't say anything about Spurrier because people would still not know that USC exists if it wasn't for Spurrier. Nobody would care at all.
I am thankful for the 3 good years that Spurrier brought us in 10 years. He is the winningest coach in school history, and he coached for 10 years.
Oh, so it wasn't 3 good years. It was multiple good years. You guys were actually sort of relevant.
500 most of the time he was there.
You were still sort of relevant. People cared about South Carolina.
We played and lost in bowl games. I remember there was one year we started off 6-1.
You played in bowl games. That's way better than South Carolina usually is. So let's just give them credit where credit is due. Took a dumpster fire of a team and actually made them go to bowl games. So let's come on.
I am not unthankful for what he did for us while he was there, but I don't like the way he left us. I don't like the fact that he came to South Carolina to prove that he can win anywhere. So yeah, I have my reservations. Like I said, I'm thankful for the glory years that he gave us from 2010 to 2014. And then he got lazy. He stopped recruiting.
He built the Florida football program.
Of course he did.
Built it on his own. So
yeah.
But
Urban Meyer won that, man. Urban Meyer won national titles in Florida.
Don't say that name.
Spurrier never even won a conference title with South Carolina.
Urban Meyer won with somebody else's team.
You know who's gonna win? You know who's gonna win a national title with South Carolina?
Is he alive yet? Has he been born?
Man, I want to say so many things. Bill, we're up against it, man. We're actually running a little late this week. Right. Appreciate you being here. Anything that you want to talk about coming up, or you just don't want to?
No, man, we're good. We can just chop it off. We can be done.
All right, yeah,
we'll go.
No,
we need to have people comment on the actual about things we need to talk about. We need more topics because sometimes people would show up for stuff that they don't care about. I don't think anybody cares about South Carolina football. And probably don't care much about the Dolphins either.
It's Homer's Corner, man. That's the point.
I know. I'm just
Homer's Corner. That's the time
saying,
to do it.
We need to know what people want to hear about. It's awesome to have everybody in the chat tonight. That was super
cool. Shout out to everybody.
I can't see it anymore.
Tim, Michelle, Andy, Volley Polly chiming in. Your sister Tara. Shawnee even gave us a like on Facebook.
Andy was here.
Andy was here. Will came in, gave us a like. We still got a couple listeners as we close out. But thanks to everybody who was interactive. And like Bill said, make sure you come in the thread or come on social media, facebook.com/tapouts and touchdowns. Let us know if there's something you want us to cover. Volley Polly did it, and we talked about it tonight on the show.
We did miss one, though. We need to talk about he asked about a 14-team
we did.
Fantasy league. So we'll get to that, I think. I think we'll try to get to that maybe next week.
Yeah.
I have been in very large fantasy formats before, and it is very difficult.
Yeah, we'll talk
a lot of time.
We'll sort of talk the sweet spots of fantasy football next week. Kind of roster alignment stuff like that. I've done a lot of extensive preparation for fantasy football. Go into the archives. I've got an introduction to fantasy football and what you should be looking for if you're trying to start up playing fantasy football. So make sure you go check in that. And again, go to social media. Let us know what you want us talking about. We'll jot this note down for Volley Polly, and we'll talk about it next week. But that's about it for the night. Thanks again, everybody who joined, participated, and or who listened on the podcast webs, wherever it is you get your podcast. Make sure you check out the wrestling episodes of Tap House and Touchdowns, where PJ, Steven, and I are 3 episodes deep in our 1997 PJ's Time Machine, where we're going WWF 1997. And make sure you go check out the Cat Cave as part of the Fans First Sports Network and the Keep Pounding Podcast Network, where Michael Davis and I are talking all things Carolina Panthers. You can find those on YouTube if you go and follow the Tobacco Road Sports Radio page, where you can also find this here podcast weekly on the Tobacco Road Sports Radio. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. For Banker Bill, it's your guy, Bully Rye. We'll see you next time right here on Tap Outs and Touchdowns.